Mia was curled sideways in my passenger seat with her heels on the floorboard, her forehead against the window, and one hand still wrapped around the little silver purse she had almost left on 3 different tables. She kept saying she was fine. That was how I knew she wasn't. I pulled into her parents' driveway a little after midnight, killed the headlights, and sat there for a second with both hands on the wheel. The house was dark except for the porch light Susan always left on when Mia was out late. It made everything look calm, which felt almost rude after the night we'd just had. Mia stirred when the car stopped. "Are we here?" she mumbled. "Yeah," I said. "Home sweet home. Try not to insult your mailbox on the way in." Her mouth twitched, but it wasn't her real smile. I knew the difference. Her real smile took over her whole face, like she couldn't stop it even when she tried. This one barely made it past her lips. "I'm not that bad," she said. "You tried to thank a coat rack for holding your jacket. It looked helpful." It was a coat rack. Still helpful. I should have laughed harder, but I kept seeing her at Rachel's engagement party, standing near the dessert table in that dark green dress, pretending she hadn't just watched Trevor walk in with someone else. Trevor wasn't even worth a big speech. He was one of those guys who always looked like he had just stepped out of a watch commercial. Clean shoes, perfect hair, relaxed smile, the kind of confidence that made people mistake manners for depth. Mia had been trying hard not to care about him for months, which meant she cared more than she wanted anyone to know. She had asked me to come with her because, in her words, engagement parties are just group projects with cake, and she didn't want to face Rachel's crowd alone. So I went. Of course I went. I always went when Mia asked. First, she was doing great. Better than great. She walked in like nothing could touch her, hugged Rachel, made jokes with people she barely liked, stole a bacon-wrapped date off my plate, and told me my tie looked like I had borrowed it from a substitute teacher with tax problems. Then Trevor arrived, with a woman I'd never seen before. He didn't make a big scene. That was the worst part. He just smiled at Mia like they were old classmates, introduced the woman as Heather and said, "Good to see you, Mia," like she was some friendly side note in his evening. Mia's face didn't break. I'll give her that. She smiled, said something polite, and even laughed when Heather complimented her dress. But her hand found my sleeve under the cocktail table and held on for about 3 seconds too long. After that, she got louder. Not messy at first, just louder. More jokes, more little stories, more "I'm totally fine" energy. She toasted Rachel like she was hosting the whole event, danced with 2 of Rachel's cousins, and told a table full of people that love was just scheduling with better lighting. Everyone laughed. I didn't, because I could see what she was doing. Mia had a way of making pain entertaining so nobody would ask about it. She could turn a bad moment into a joke before it had time to land. Most people loved that about her. I did too sometimes, but I also knew what came after. So when her words started slipping and she laughed a little too long at something that wasn't funny, I took the glass out of her hand and said, "We're leaving." She argued for 7 seconds. Then she leaned into me like she had been waiting all night for permission to stop pretending. Now, in the driveway, she blinked slowly at the porch. "My mom's gonna know," she said. "Your mom knew before we left the party. She has powers. She has eyes, Mia." That too. I got out, walked around to her side, and opened the door. Cold air slid into the car. Mia squinted up at me like I had personally invented winter. "Come on," I said, holding out my hand. She looked at my hand, then at me. "You're annoyingly reliable. I've been called worse. By me. Mostly." She took my hand, and I helped her swing her legs out. She tried to stand too fast, wobbled, and grabbed my jacket with both hands. Her forehead bumped my chest. "Okay," she whispered. "Ground moved. Ground's been there the whole time. Show off." I put one arm around her shoulders and kept my other hand ready in case she decided to argue with gravity again. She smelled like perfume, party candles, and the mint gum she always chewed when she was upset. Her shoes dangled from 2 fingers, and her bare feet touched the driveway like she was testing whether the world could be trusted. This was the thing people always got wrong about us. They saw Mia leaning on me like that and assumed it meant something simple. They saw the late-night food runs, the emergency rides, the private jokes, the way she called me before anyone else when something went sideways. They saw me keeping a spare hoodie in my backseat because she was always cold and never prepared. They saw her stealing fries off my plate like she had legal rights, and I always said the same thing. We're just friends. It was easier that way. Safer. Cleaner. 6 years of friendship was not something you tossed into traffic just because your chest got weird when she smiled at you. We made it halfway up the walkway before the front door opened. Susan stood there in a robe, arms folded, not surprised at all. Mia lifted one hand in a weak little wave. "Hi, Mom." Susan looked at her daughter, then at me, then at Mia's shoes in her hand. "Rough night?" she asked. Mia nodded seriously. The cake was dry. Susan's eyes softened. "That bad, huh?" The frosting lied. "I'll make tea," Susan said. Cleared my throat. "I'm sorry it's so late. I figured it was better to bring her here than back to her apartment." "You did the right thing, Nate." Susan stepped aside so we could come in. Mia shuffled over the threshold, still leaning into me like it was the most natural thing in the world. I helped her past the little entry table with the bowl of keys and the family photos. There was one of her in high school with braces, one from college graduation, and one from 2 summers ago at the lake where she had shoved me into the water 5 seconds after the picture was taken. Susan closed the door behind us quietly. Mia rested her cheek against my shoulder. "Nate's mad at me." "I'm not mad. He has the voice." "What voice?" "The responsible voice." Susan glanced at me, and there was something in her expression I couldn't place. Not amusement exactly. Not worry either. More like she had been watching the same movie for years and had finally reached the scene everyone else was too slow to understand. "I can get her upstairs," I said. "If that's okay." Susan nodded. "Thank you." Mia lifted her head. "I can climb stairs." "You couldn't climb out of a chair 20 minutes ago," I said. That chair was hostile. I adjusted my arm around her, and she let me guide her toward the stairs. We had done stuff like this before in smaller ways. Not this exact situation, but close enough. Her car broke down, I picked her up. My heater went out. She brought soup and made fun of my blankets. She got anxious before a work presentation. I stayed on the phone until she fell asleep. I had always filed it under friendship because I needed the label to behave. Then Susan said my name. Not loud. Just enough. "Nate." I turned back from the bottom stair. She stood in the hallway with one hand on the banister, looking at me like she was deciding whether to say something she couldn't take back. Then she said it. "You're all she talks about." For a second, the whole house went too quiet. Mia didn't react. She was too busy blinking at the stairs like they had personally offended her. But I heard it. Every word. And the worst part was how gently Susan said it. Like she wasn't trying to shock me. Like she was simply handing me something everyone else already knew. I tried to answer, but nothing useful came out. Susan gave me a small, tired smile. "Come on. Let's get her to bed." So I nodded and helped Mia up the stairs one step at a time. Her hand wrapped around my sleeve, her weight warm against my side. But my head wasn't on the stairs anymore. It was stuck in the hallway, replaying Susan's voice. "You're all she talks about." Mia made it 4 stairs before she stopped and pointed at the framed picture on the wall. "That's me," she said. "Yes," I said. "In your own house. Wild. I had bangs. You survived." "Barely." Susan followed behind us, one hand hovering near Mia's back, but she mostly let me handle it. I think she already knew Mia would fight help less if it came from me. That had always been one of Mia's things. She could be stubborn with the whole world, but with me she usually gave up after one sarcastic comment and let me fix whatever had gone sideways. By the time we got to her room, she had gone quieter. Her room looked almost the same as it had the first time I'd been in there years ago. Back when we were 20, and she had insisted I help move a desk because her dad had a suspicious relationship with measuring tape. The desk was still by the window. There were books stacked on the nightstand, a sweater thrown over the chair, and a little ceramic dish full of earrings and hair ties. Mia could look perfectly put together in public and still live like a small windstorm had personal access to her bedroom. Susan pulled back the covers. "Sit," I told Mia. "I know how beds work. Prove it." She sat too hard on the edge of the mattress, bounced a little and frowned. That was the bed's fault. Everything's someone else's fault tonight. She looked up at me then, and for the first time since the driveway, her face changed. The jokes thinned out. Her eyes were tired and glossy, and the smile she tried to wear just didn't stay. "You came," she said. I swallowed, because that hit me in a place I wasn't ready for. "I always do." Her fingers tightened around my sleeve like she knew the answer but needed to hear it anyway. Susan watched us for half a second too long, then cleared her throat softly. "I'm going to get water," she said. "And something for the headache she's absolutely going to deny having." "I don't get headaches," Mia said. Susan paused at the door. "You told the kitchen island it was spinning last Thanksgiving." "It was." Susan gave me a look that almost made me smile, then left us alone. The room settled into a soft quiet after that. Not a romantic quiet. Not exactly. More like the kind of quiet that happens when someone finally stops performing and the air doesn't know what to do with itself. Mia stared down at her hands. Her purse had ended up beside her on the bed, still clutched under one elbow like it might escape. Her hair had slipped loose around her face, and one earring was missing. I spotted it caught in the blanket and picked it up. "You're missing this," I said. She looked at the earring in my palm. "Story of my life. An earring. No." She let out a small laugh that didn't sound happy. "The important part." I stood there, not sure what to say. I had known Mia too long to rush her when she sounded like that. If you pushed, she made a joke. If you waited, sometimes she told the truth by accident. She reached out suddenly and wrapped her fingers around my wrist. Not hard, just enough to keep me there. "It's you," she said. I blinked. "What's me?" "The problem." That should have been funny. Normally I would have said something like, "Finally, someone admits my power." But her voice was too small for jokes. "Mia," I said carefully, "you've had a bad night." "No." She shook her head, then immediately seemed to regret moving that fast. "Okay, yes, but not because of Trevor." I sat on the edge of the desk chair, close enough that she didn't have to raise her voice, far enough that I felt like I was still doing the right thing. "Trevor was pretty high on the list," I said. "He looked right," she said. "That was the stupid part. On paper, you know? Good job, good manners, nice shirts." "Very nice shirts. Too nice. Suspiciously nice." She almost smiled, then looked down at my wrist still in her hand. "But no one feels right after you." I didn't move. I barely breathed. Outside her window, a car passed somewhere down the street, and its headlights slid across the ceiling for a second before disappearing. I watched the light move because looking directly at her felt dangerous. "Mia," I said, softer this time. "I know." She squeezed her eyes shut. "I know. I'm not supposed to say that. I had too much and my mom is downstairs and you're doing the Nate thing where you look calm but you're not calm." "I am calm." "You are absolutely not calm." She was right. I was sitting in her childhood bedroom with her hand around my wrist, hearing a sentence I had secretly wanted and actively feared for years. "No one feels right after you." I told myself she was drunk. I told myself she was hurt. I told myself Trevor had embarrassed her and now her brain was grabbing the safest person in reach. That made sense. That was logical. But Mia wasn't rambling. She wasn't confusing me with someone else. She was looking at me like she had been holding this in for so long that it came out tired. "At the party," she said, "I kept trying to care about him. You don't have to talk about this tonight." "Yes, I do. Because tomorrow I'll pretend I said something normal, like I want waffles or I hate Rachel's centerpieces." "You do hate Rachel's centerpieces. They were branches, Nate. Just branches in tall vases. That's not decor. That's yard work." Despite everything, I laughed once under my breath. Then her face folded again. "Trevor talked to me, and I kept thinking you would have noticed I didn't want to be asked about work. He laughed at something I said, and I kept thinking your laugh is worse but better." "My laugh is worse? It's too loud." "Great. But it's real." Her thumb moved once against my wrist, like she didn't realize she was doing it. "He asked if I was having fun, and I said yes, but you were already across the room looking at me like you knew I wanted to leave." "I did know." "I know you did." That was the part that made my chest hurt. Not in a dramatic way, just a sharp, simple ache, like something had been sitting there for years and finally shifted. She looked up at me. He doesn't feel like home, she said. None of them do. I could have said her name again. I could have told her she was drunk again. I could have gently moved her hand away and acted like this was just a rough night talking. But I didn't, because some part of me, the part one had been trying to keep quiet for 6 years, knew exactly what she meant. Every routine we had built, every late call, every text me when you get home. Every time she fell asleep on my couch during a movie, and I pretended not to notice how happy it made me just to have her there. None of it had ever felt casual to me. I had just learned how to stand inside it without naming it. Mia, I said, you're really not in the best place to have this conversation. I'm in my bedroom. You know what I mean. She gave me a tired look. You're being noble. It's annoying. I'm being careful. With me. Especially with you. That made her quiet. Her grip loosened, but she didn't let go. Every time something happens, she whispered, good, bad, weird, anything, I want to tell you first. Before my mom. Before Rachel. Before whoever I'm supposed to be dating. It's always you. I looked down at her hand on my wrist. Her nails were painted pale pink, chipped on one thumb. I knew she'd done them herself 2 nights ago while we were on the phone, because she had complained that one hand always looked professional and the other looked like a raccoon helped. How many tiny details did I carry around without admitting what they meant? Before I could answer, Susan came back in with a glass of water and a small bottle in her hand. Mia let go of my wrist so fast it almost made the moment look guilty. Susan noticed. Of course she noticed. Susan noticed dust on a ceiling fan from across the street. Water, she said, calm as ever. Mia took the glass with both hands. I'm fine. You're not, Susan said. But you're home. I stood up. I should probably let you too. No, Mia said quickly, then seemed embarrassed by how fast it came out. Susan stepped beside the bed and brushed Mia's hair back with the kind of practiced motion only a mother has. He'll be downstairs, she said. Mia looked at me. You're leaving. The question was too open, too young, too honest. Not yet, I said. That seemed to help. She nodded once, then drank some water like it was a personal challenge. I followed Susan out a few minutes later, after Mia had been convinced to lie down and stop arguing with her blanket. At the top of the stairs, I glanced back. Mia was on her side, eyes half closed, but still watching me leave. Downstairs, Susan didn't say anything until we were in the kitchen. She put the kettle on like this was a normal midnight visit and not the moment my entire understanding of my life had just been shoved sideways. Tea? She asked. I'm okay. You're not, she said, and I almost laughed because now I knew exactly where Mia got it. I sat at the kitchen table because my legs felt less dependable than I wanted to admit. Susan moved around quietly, taking down 2 mugs anyway. The kitchen smelled like lemon dish soap and chamomile. There was a magnet on the fridge from a beach trip Mia and I had taken with friends 3 years ago. In the photo stuck under it, Mia had her arm around my waist and I was looking at her instead of the camera. I had never noticed that before. Or maybe I had and I'd just chosen not to. Susan set a mug in front of me. She's been in love with you for over a year, she said. No warning. No soft entry. Just that. I stared at the tea like it had personally accused me of something. Susan. I'm not guessing, Nate. I rubbed both hands over my face. I don't know what to say. You could start with whether I need to worry about my daughter waking up humiliated. That landed hard. I looked at her then. I would never make this worse for her. I know that. That's why you're sitting here. The house was quiet above us. I could hear the low hum of the refrigerator, the faint tick of the kitchen clock, my own pulse being way too loud for a room this peaceful. I've been trying very hard not to tell her the same thing, I said. Susan's expression softened, but she didn't look surprised. For how long? I let out a breath. Long enough that it stopped feeling like a secret and started feeling like a bad habit. She nodded slowly, like that answer made sense to her. I kept thinking friendship was safer, I said. If I said something and she didn't feel the same, I could lose her. And if she did feel the same and we messed it up, I could still lose her. So I just stayed where I was. Beside her. Yeah. Susan wrapped both hands around her mug. That girl will wake up tomorrow and try to turn this into a joke. She'll say she doesn't remember, or she'll blame the drinks, or she'll ask if you can both pretend she only confessed to hating Rachel's decorations. She does hate them. I know. They were awful. I smiled despite myself. Then Susan's face grew serious again. If you don't mean it, she said, let her bury it. Let her have the joke. Let her save herself some pride. I nodded because that was fair. More than fair. But if you do mean it, she continued, don't leave her alone with the worst version of what she said. Write in the comments. Was Susan right to push me to stay? Or should a mother have stayed out of her daughter's love life? I looked toward the stairs. That was the part that decided it for me. Not the confession. Not even Susan telling me what I had been too scared to hope. It was the picture of Mia waking up in the morning, remembering pieces of the night, deciding she had ruined the one steady thing in her life, and then hiding behind a joke because she thought I had run. I couldn't let her think that. I'll stay, I said. Susan studied me for a second, then nodded once. Guest rooms made up. Are you sure? Nate, you've fixed our sink, driven my daughter home in 3 snowstorms, and once came over at 2 in the morning because she thought there was a raccoon in her wall. There was a raccoon in her wall. There was a squirrel on the roof. It sounded large. Susan smiled into her mug. Stay. So I did. Not because I knew what would happen next. I didn't. My head was still spinning, and every careful rule I had made for myself around Mia felt cracked down the middle. But I stayed because leaving would have been easier for me and harder for her. And for once, I was tired of doing the easy thing and calling it friendship. I didn't sleep. I did the thing where I lay under a blanket in a room that wasn't mine and kept my eyes closed like that counted. The guest room had this old wooden dresser, a lamp with a crooked shade, and a framed watercolor of some beach Susan probably bought because it matched the curtains. Everything was quiet and normal. My brain was not. Every time I almost drifted off, I heard Mia's voice again. No one feels right after you. Then Susan's voice. She's been in love with you for over a year. The worst part was, once somebody said it out loud, it didn't feel new. It felt like finding your keys in the place you kept refusing to check. I thought about the last 6 years. Not in some big dramatic montage, but in these annoying little flashes that wouldn't leave me alone. Mia calling me from a grocery store because she couldn't decide if buying one fancy cheese was self-care or financial collapse. Mia falling asleep on my couch with one sock halfway off. Mia texting me a picture of a flat tire with the caption, "Guess who is becoming a woman of action?" Then calling me 30 seconds later because she didn't know where the jack was. I thought about all the guys too. The ones she liked for 2 weeks. The ones she tried to like longer. The ones I told myself I had no opinion about while quietly noticing every lazy answer, every late reply, every time they made her explain a joke they should have just understood. I had acted like a boyfriend in every way that didn't require courage. That was not my proudest realization. At some point, I heard movement upstairs. A soft footstep. Then another. I opened my eyes and stared at the ceiling. A few seconds later, there was a knock on the guest room door. Not a normal knock. Mia's knock. 2 soft taps. Then a pause. Like she already regretted bothering me. I got up fast, then forced myself to slow down before opening the door. I didn't want to look like I had been waiting in the dark like a haunted man. When I opened it, Mia was standing in the hallway wearing an oversized sweatshirt and pajama shorts. Her hair pulled into the messiest knot I had ever seen. Her mascara had given up. She looked pale, tired, and fully horrified. "Hi," she whispered. "Hi." She glanced past me into the guest room. "You're here. I'm here. Cool. Great. Normal." She rubbed both hands over her face. That's very normal and not at all terrifying." I leaned against the doorframe. "You okay?" "No." She dropped her hands and looked at me with wide eyes. "Did I confess my entire emotional life to you and somehow involve my mother?" I pressed my lips together. Her face fell. "Oh no. You remember that?" "I remember pieces." She pointed weakly down the hall. "I remember stairs being rude. I remember Mom giving me water. I remember saying something about Trevor's shirts. You called them suspicious." "They were suspicious." "Agreed." "And then," she swallowed, Then I remember your face, and my hand on your wrist, and I remember saying something I should have kept locked in a box and thrown into a lake. I kept my voice low. Mia. She looked away quickly. Please don't do the gentle voice. I can't survive the gentle voice right now. What voice should I use? I don't know. Customer service. Weather reporter. Anything with distance. It's partly cloudy with a high chance you're panicking. That got the smallest laugh out of her, but it broke right in the middle. Then she asked the real question. Did I ruin us? There it was. Exactly what Susan had warned me about. Mia trying to stand in the hallway with all that shame by herself, hoping I'd hand her a joke big enough to hide behind. I stepped out of the room and closed the door halfway behind me. No, I said. You didn't ruin us. Her eyes searched mine like she didn't trust the first answer. You don't have to say that because I'm pathetic and hungover. You're not pathetic. I am absolutely pathetic. I'm standing outside your guest room at some awful hour wearing a sweatshirt with a coffee stain on it, asking whether I emotionally drop-kicked our friendship. You didn't. I was drunk. You were. She flinched a little. But you were also honest, I said. The hallway went quiet. Mia wrapped her arms around herself. It was the same thing she did at the party after Trevor walked in, only now she didn't have a glass in her hand or a crowd to entertain. I don't want to blame it all on that, she said. I want to, because that would be convenient and I could make a joke and never look you in the eye again. That sounds healthy. Don't be funny. I'm trying to be tragic. You're bad at tragic. I know. Her mouth trembled, but she managed to hold it together. I'm scared, Nate. That shut me up. She looked down at the carpet between us. I woke up and remembered enough, and for a second I thought you'd be gone. Like you would have done the polite thing and left so we could both pretend it never happened. And then Mom said you were in the guest room. Susan was awake? Of course she was awake. She was sitting in the kitchen drinking tea like a woman who had successfully completed a long-term social experiment. That sounds like her. She told me not to wake you. And yet, Mia said, giving me a helpless little shrug. Because I couldn't sit in my room wondering if I had just lost you. I let that sit there for a second. It deserved space. You didn't lose me, I said. Her eyes lifted to mine. I stayed because I knew you'd wake up and try to make it smaller, I said. Or make yourself smaller. And I didn't want you thinking I ran because you told the truth. She blinked, and I saw the words hit her. Not like a big romantic scene. More like relief arriving carefully, not sure if it was allowed in yet. You think it was the truth? She asked. I think Trevor's shirts were suspicious. The stares were rude, and you were drunk. I took a breath. I also think what you said wasn't random. Mia stared at me for a long moment. Then she looked toward her bedroom door, like part of her still wanted to escape into it. I hate this, she whispered. Great start. No, I hate that it came out like that. After Trevor. After too many drinks. With my mom roaming around like emotional security. She gave a weak laugh, then shook her head. You deserved better than that. I wasn't exactly suffering. Nate. Okay. Yeah. Maybe the setting was not ideal. She let out a breath. Then she straightened a little like she was making herself stay. I meant it, she said. My whole body went still. She didn't rush this time. Her words were slower, clearer, without that loose drunken edge from before. Every time I try to build something with someone else, I end up comparing it to what I already have with you. And that's unfair. To them. To me. Probably to you too. She pressed her fingers against her forehead for a second. Trevor didn't break my heart tonight. He embarrassed me, yeah. He made me feel stupid. But the awful part was realizing I didn't even want him the way I kept telling myself I did. I listened because I didn't trust myself to interrupt. I wanted him to be enough, she said. Because if someone else was enough, then I wouldn't have to deal with this. I wouldn't have to look at my best friend and admit that I've been using every other guy like a distraction from the person I call when my sink makes a weird noise. Your sink does make weird noises. It coughs. It does cough. She smiled for half a second, then her eyes turned serious again. You feel like home, she said. And I know that sounds like something people put on a pillow, And I hate that for me, but it's true. When something good happens, I want you. When something bad happens, I want you. When nothing happens, I still want to talk to you about it. She swallowed. That's not friendship anymore. Maybe it hasn't been for a while. The hallway felt smaller than it had a minute ago. I could hear the house settling, the faint hum of the heater, Mia breathing like she was trying hard not to take any of it back. I had spent years imagining what I would say if this moment ever happened. Turns out, all those imagined speeches were useless. When the real moment came, it didn't need a speech. It needed me to stop hiding. I've been in love with you so long, I said, that it started feeling normal. Mia's lips parted slightly. I looked down, laughed once at myself, then looked back at her. That sounds insane when I say it out loud. No, she whispered. It doesn't. It does a little. Maybe a little. I rubbed the back of my neck. I kept telling myself I was being smart, protecting the friendship, protecting you, protecting me. But really, I think I just found a safe place beside you and got scared to ask for more. Her eyes shone, but she didn't cry. Mia could face down a room full of awkward party guests, but honest tenderness still made her look like she wanted to climb out a window. So when I dated people, she started. I hated it. You did. Quietly, maturely, like an idiot. She laughed under her breath. You were always so polite. I was not polite in my head. I knew it. Of course you knew it. She stepped a little closer. Not enough to make it dramatic. Just enough that I noticed the distance had changed. I thought maybe I was imagining it, she said. You weren't. I thought maybe you were just you. Like that's how you loved people. It is, I said. But not like this. That did something to her face. Softened it. Shook it. For a moment neither of us spoke. We just stood there in the hallway of her parents' house in the middle of the night, both exhausted, both scared, both finally looking at the thing we had built and admitting it had stopped being simple a long time ago. Mia looked at my hand, then back at me. I don't know what happens now, she said. Me neither. That's comforting. I'm known for that. She smiled, and this time it was closer to real. I wanted to reach for her. I wanted it so badly that I had to keep my hand against the doorframe, like I didn't trust it loose. But the night had already been too full, too messy, too loaded with old feelings and bad party leftovers and Susan knowing every secret in the house. So I stayed where I was. For once, the important thing wasn't rushing forward. It was not stepping back. I wanted to kiss her. I'm not going to pretend I didn't. Mia was standing close enough that I could see the little crease between her eyebrows, the one she got when she was trying not to make a joke at the wrong time. Her hair was a disaster. Her sweatshirt had that coffee stain she'd mentioned, and she looked more like herself than she had all night. That was exactly why I didn't move. Because if I kissed her in that hallway, after the party, after Trevor, after the drinks, after her mother had basically handed me a flashlight and pointed it at the obvious, I knew part of her would wake up later and wonder if it only happened because everything else had gone wrong first. I didn't want to be the next part of a messy night. I wanted to be something she chose with a clear head. So I kept my hand on the doorframe and said, I should probably do the responsible thing right now. Mia narrowed her eyes. I hate when you start sentences like that. I'm serious. That's usually the problem. I took a breath. I'm not going to kiss you tonight. Her face changed fast. Not hurt exactly, but scared enough that I felt it in my stomach. Oh, she said. No, not like that. I stepped closer, just enough to stop her from building the wrong story in her head. Not because I don't want to. She looked at me carefully. You don't want to? Mia. What? I'm processing. I want to so much that I'm standing here gripping a doorframe like it owes me money. That got a small laugh out of her, and some of the fear loosened around her mouth. But tonight has been a lot, I said, and I don't want our first real step to be mixed up with Trevor, or the party, or you feeling embarrassed, or your mom downstairs pretending she doesn't have super hearing. My mom absolutely has super hearing. I know. That's why I'm choosing my words like a man on trial. Mia looked down, smiling despite herself. So what are you saying? She asked. I'm saying I want to take you out tomorrow night. Her eyes lifted. Like, she paused. Out. Yes. Not a food run? No. Not tacos in your car because I had a bad day? No. Not you helping me pick up furniture from someone on Facebook Marketplace, and then we accidentally get burgers? That one was still suspiciously close to a date. It was a bookshelf, Nate. It had candlelight. That was a broken street lamp. Still. She laughed again, and this time it sounded more like her. I held her gaze. Dinner. On purpose. No party fallout. No Trevor. No drinks making things blurry. No mother as witness unless she breaks into the restaurant, which honestly feels possible. It is possible, Mia said. She has range. Just you and me deciding what this is while we're both clear. For a second, she didn't answer. Mia, who could talk her way through anything, just stood there in the quiet hallway with her arms folded around herself and her eyes fixed on mine. I could almost see her checking the offer for hidden traps. Pity, panic, obligation, a reaction to her confession instead of an answer to it. Then her face softened. You're asking me on a real date, she said. I am. After 6 years of pretending you didn't know I was stealing fries from you as a love language. I knew. I was just too afraid to invoice you emotionally. That's very romantic. I'm new at this. No, you're not, she said softly. That's the weird part. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just stood there and let it land. Then she took one small step forward, rose onto her toes, and kissed my cheek. It was quick, warm, simple. It still managed to knock every organized thought out of my head. She leaned back with a nervous smile. Sober preview. I touched my cheek like an idiot. That's a dangerous marketing strategy. Did it work? Unfortunately, yes. Her smile finally turned real. After that, we said goodnight like two people who had no idea how to say goodnight anymore. There was a weird half-step where we both almost hugged, then laughed, then did hug, but carefully, like we were trying not to set off fireworks in her parents' hallway. When Mia went back to her room, she looked over her shoulder once. You'll still be here in the morning? She asked. Yeah. She nodded. Okay. That one word told me she believed me. Not completely maybe. Not yet. But enough to sleep. The next morning was awkward in a way that felt survivable. Susan made pancakes and acted normal for about 12 seconds before asking Mia if she wanted coffee. For courage. Mia nearly dropped her fork. I stared very hard at my plate. Susan looked proud of herself. By noon, Mia had gone back to her apartment to shower and change and pretend she wasn't nervous. I went home, put on 3 different shirts, hated all of them, and finally wore the first one. At 7, I pulled up outside her place. This time, there was no party crowd, no bad lighting, no forced smile. Mia came downstairs in jeans, a soft blue sweater, and those little gold hoops she wore when she didn't want to look like she had tried too hard, even though she definitely had. Her hair was down. Her face was clear and sober and nervous in a way that made my chest feel too full. I got out of the car. She stopped on the sidewalk. You're early. You're ready. I've been ready for 20 minutes. I've been parked around the corner for 10. She blinked, then laughed. We're terrible at being cool. Always have been. Before I could open the passenger door, the front door behind her opened. Susan stepped out like she had been waiting in a command center. Oh good, she said. The adults finally arrived. Mia turned bright red. Mom. What? I've been very patient. You were patient for half a day. After years, sweetheart. Years. I coughed into my fist and looked away, which was useless because Susan aimed straight at me. Bring her back smiling, Nate. Yes, ma'am. Mia groaned. Can we go before she starts giving a speech? I have notes, Susan said. We're leaving. Mia grabbed my sleeve and pulled me toward the car, which felt familiar enough to settle my nerves and different enough to make my heart act stupid. Dinner was at a little Italian place we'd been to before, but never like that. Same booth style, same bread basket, same Mia stealing the corner piece because she said corners had more personality. But now every normal thing had a new charge to it. Not uncomfortable, just noticed. When her knee brushed mine under the table, neither of us moved away. When the waiter asked if we were celebrating anything, Mia looked at me with wide eyes and said, emotional competence. And I nearly choked on my water. We talked about the party a little. Not too much. Trevor came up only long enough for Mia to say, I think I was trying to make him matter because that was easier than admitting who already did. I didn't make a joke after that. I reached across the table and took her hand. She looked down at our fingers like she was memorizing the difference. "This is weird," she said. "Bad weird." "No." She squeezed my hand. "Easy weird." That was exactly it. We weren't inventing a connection from nothing. We weren't trying to impress each other or fill silence with polished stories. She already knew I hated olives. I already knew she judged restaurants by their bread. And both of us knew she was going to steal dessert off my plate no matter what she ordered. The only new thing was that we weren't pretending the closeness was accidental. A month later, not everything had changed. Mia still called me when her sink made that weird coughing sound. She still sent me photos of grocery shelves like I was qualified to judge pasta shapes. She still stole my fries, still fell asleep during movies, still told me my laugh was too loud and then tried to make me laugh anyway. I still drove her home. Only now, when she reached across the console and took my hand, she didn't act like she had done it by mistake. And I didn't act like I hadn't been waiting years to hold it back.